Yeah, I don't got an intro. This game fucking rocks. Transformers 2004 is a third-person shooter loosely based on the excellent Transformers Armada anime. As such, it has the conventions you would expect from not only a third-person shooter, but a Transformers game as well. You have a gameplay loop based around shooting and taking cover, and obviously, right, you're a Transformer, so you can transform for faster traversal. At first glance, this game might seem like a bog standard shooter, but just like the Transformers themselves, there's more to it than meets the eye. One thing that really stood out to me was this game's level design. I'm so used to these Transformers games either being open world or having a very linear level by level structure. So when playing this game, I was pleased to see that it's sort of like a hybrid between open world and linearity. The game doesn't have levels per se. I would say it's more close to a classic FPS map, something like you would see in classic Doom. This game's structure is technically level by level, but the levels themselves are huge sandbox maps with tons and tons of places to explore and secrets to find. The maps are so large, in fact, the game has fast travel points all throughout, and you'll definitely want to familiarize yourself with these maps because you'll be spending a lot of time exploring these large vistas. Before I get into the gameplay, I want to get this out the way now. This game is incredibly good looking. The gameplay you see was mostly captured off my PS2 using component cables, which on our CRT really make the visuals pop. The jungle and forest levels have dense foliage and pretty impressive lighting for the time. The Antarctic level has a really intense and melancholic atmosphere with all the abandoned tools and settlements scattered all throughout. It actually reminds me a little bit of the Finjana drifts from Metroid Prime, which is a huge compliment. The animations in this game are also extremely well done. The way the characters move and string together actions is extremely seamless, and it feels very much like you really are controlling a large and heavy robot. Some of the bosses also have pretty cool grab animations, and the assuming ragdolls is always hilarious. The ragdolls in this game are actually, they remind me of the time capsule of this era, right? During this era, every game had fucking ragdoll physics, with some of my favorite examples being the ones in Spider-Man 2 for the PS2. This is the type of game where you can't help but just stop the action and go sightseeing. This game is a visual marvel, and it's not only the visuals either. This game's soundtrack kicks all types of ass. This game was composed by Gavin Parker, and he absolutely hit it out of the park with this one. When just exploring the levels, the music is often very somber and serene, and at points even a little melancholic. It really sets the mood and puts you in the shoes of whatever Autobot you're playing as. And, as a bonus, the level music is dynamic, and it changes with the gameplay. I believe location, if you're transformed or not, as well as how many enemies are around affect the intensity of the music, and I love details like that. Some of my favorite pieces are Antarctic Ambience 1, Deep Amazon Temple Ambience 1, with my favorite of the level tracks being Antarctic Ambience 4. Just take a listen. I love every single one of these level themes, and they perfectly fit with the levels they are assigned to. But by far the best tracks in this game belong to the bosses, but we can get to that one later. So, as I mentioned earlier, this game has very large maps, and that's because this game is filled top to bottom with unlockables and secrets, and through exploration, this is how you find one of the game's main defining pieces of gameplay, and that is the Minicons.
You have rescued a Minicon. Good work, sir.
The Minicons are small robots that are integral to the lore of Transformers Armada, but we don't have time to worry about that right now. In this game, they act as your loadout, being your weapons, your utility, your movement options, and everything in between. These little dudes are integral to your gameplay, so let's take a look into the system and how I think this really opens up the replayability and fun factor that this game provides. In your loadout, you are allowed 4 types of Minicons. R1 is your primary weapon, L1 is your movement or protection, and L2 and R2 are both your ability buttons. So in total, you can have up to 4 different types of weapons, utility, and armor. And these Minicons can be quite varied. You can get something as mundane as a higher jump, something as crazy as a lightning weapon that arcs to any enemies near it. This system rewards and incentivizes exploration because you never know what crazy ability you're gonna find. Once again, I must reiterate, I love how varied each of these Minicons are because you are truly able to play your own way and craft your own playstyle. I know a lot of games use that, but I feel like in this game, it actually is a pretty apt description of the gameplay loop. For example, I've always liked being a tank. I played tanks in hero shooters and I always tend to lean more towards building health and armor in other games. So this game really is no different. I tended to use the more defensive ability Minicons while also titling some higher damage weapons. This allowed me to take a more aggressive playstyle, especially with how I was able to basically give myself an extra life bar by combining multiple gold Minicons. Let's briefly go over the Minicon colors and how they affect gameplay. So in this game, there are a few colors associated with the Minicons, and these can basically be seen as their rarity. You have red, blue, green, and gold. And the more you stack of the same color, the better benefits you can get. For example, 2 of the same color give you more health, 3 of the same color gives you more health and power links duration, and if you have a full loadout of the same color, not only do you get the previously listed benefits, but the Minicon recharge rate is also decreased drastically. And of course, since the colors are akin to rarity, the better the rarity, the better the benefits. So if you have an all gold loadout, well, let's just say the enemies will easily fall before you. This may have seemed like a lot to go through, but we're not even close to done yet. Like I said, this game has a surprising amount of depth to its gameplay. When I was talking about the Minicons and the color stacking, I mentioned something called power links duration. And well, let's see, this game came out in what, 2004? Well, 3 years prior, a little known game called Max Payne came out, and one of the most defining aspects of that game was the bullet time mechanic. And effectively, that is what the Power Links mode is, the Transformers version of bullet time. And you'll need it too, because even on normal, this game throws a shitload of enemies at you, and at times they can even feel like bullet hell. So you definitely want to make good use of this mechanic if you wish to survive. However, this mechanic is not to be used at your leisure, because using Power Links mode actually drains your health. So, if you're not careful, you put yourself in a worse situation by draining all your health. Now, that might sound like a pretty big deterrent to using this mechanic, but there are 2 things that make it so you can use Power Links mode a lot more than you think. First off, whenever you exit Power Links mode, you get back half of what you used, so that's good. But what's even more important is that every enemy you kill drops health, and you can pick these up even during Power Links mode. What this means is, in order to continue using this mode, you are encouraged not to run and hide, but to push and fight, because the more enemies you kill, the more health you get. The more health you get, the more you can be in Power Links mode. The more you can be in Power Links mode, the more manageable the combat encounters can be. And I'm really glad about that, because a lot of cover-based shooters are very slow paced, very boring, but this game actually goes in the opposite direction, and it actually encourages you to be more aggressive with it. I think this game's combat is extremely exciting and dynamic. The Minicons, Power Links mode, the fact that every character has their own unique stats, this game is a treasure trove of replayability as well as being a satisfying challenge of a shooter. Yeah, I forgot to mention also that there is also melee in this game. It's useless, so don't use it. What's an action game if it doesn't have good bosses? The bosses in this game are a combination of everything you've learned. They will test your movement, your positioning, and your resource management. What I love most about these bosses, outside of 2 of them, are that these bosses are all against bots that are your size. Don't get me wrong now, I love me a good huge spectacle, but I always found fights on equal ground way more compelling. I mean, look at Virgil, Zeus, Shadow, Dark Samus, these are all great examples. My favorite boss in this game has gotta be Starscream. Not only am I biased because, he's one of my favorite Decepticons, but his game design is amazing. He's quick, has a lot of attacks, and you fight him twice. On the second go around, he even has more attacks. And let me tell you, he can be very tricky to take down. On my first playthrough, this dude was absolutely kicking my ass. So, you see, I streamed my first playthrough of this game not too long ago, and Starscream had me strategizing like he was the final boss or something. I haven't had that much fun fighting a boss in a long time. And of course, the soundtrack only helps with the intensity. Every boss track in this game is amazing, with my favorite one being Cyclonus. And of course, I would be remiss not to mention the tidal wave fight. When it comes to spectacle, this fight has it all. I mean, just look at it. You're fighting this huge Decepticon, you're in the middle of the ocean, it's raining, he's cloaked in shadow, the whole tension, the whole scene is just so ominous and foreboding, and it's extremely memorable. And very fun too. The gameplay wise, it's not bad either. Usually these big bosses kind of fall to the God of War 2, stereotype of, being big dudes over ledges. But here he's like an actual fight. Of course, he's not as interactive as the other fights, right? You can only shoot him in the head. But even then, he has lots of attacks to dodge, and he moves around the map a lot. Also, that was not a slight against God of War 2, one of my favorite games of all time. I'm just saying, after God of War 2, a lot of bosses had that, big guy over a ledge type of stereotype. Anyway, let's continue on. Something else I really liked about this fight, well, not really the fight itself, but kind of, the precursor to this fight, is that this entire level is on a big ass ship. And, come to find out, that ship is Tidal Wave himself. I don't know, I just think that's really cool, Now, I can't believe I'm gonna say this, but I think this game might actually overtake Transformers Devastation as my favorite Transformers game. During the making of this video, I've beat the game a total of 4 times, and I think every playthrough I've liked it more and more. It's crazy too, I really only just found out about this game recently. I saw it in my random game store and I said, oh, let me go pick it up. And then I streamed my first playthrough, and ever since then, man, it's been a game I can really go back to many times. I think that anyone, even people who aren't Transformers fans, can get into this game, especially if you like old school third-person shooters. But to be honest, it doesn't even really feel like a classic game. This game has aged extremely well. Granted, 2004 was already a time when 3D gaming had a pretty solid foundation, but considering that this is a licensed game, and around this time licensed games were pretty...
Help! Please! Someone! I'm going to die!
Well, let's just say hit or miss. It's honestly a shock that this game is simply that good. Granted, some of the developers behind this game will go on to work on The Force Unleashed, so I mean, these guys are extremely talented. It's a shame this game isn't that well known. I'm a huge Transformers fan, and I didn't know about it until recently. Games such as Devastation and the Cybertron games have really overshadowed it, and I think that's a damn shame. This game, in my opinion, stands toe-to-toe with those titles, and as you can probably tell from how I've been talking about this game, I think it even surpasses these games in certain areas. The game can be found physically for relatively cheap, but from my testing, emulation works pretty good as well. However, I do think this game looks best on a CRT with component cables, so if you have the means, I recommend you get it physically. But with that being said, if you made it this far into the video, then thank you. I appreciate the support and the retention. If you haven't already, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We are almost at 1,000 subs, so let's get it. This is A-Rock, signing out.